This story is quite a wake-up call for the year 2020. The Independent says the following: Death row inmate requests execution by firing squad instead of lethal injection. So his name is Michael Wade Nance, and he shot and killed a man during a botched bank robbery in 1993. And the state he's in is Georgia, and they use the lethal injection because that's what most states in the U.S. that have the death penalty, that's what they use to do it. But here's the problem. So this guy has severely compromised veins, which are hard to locate and could burst during the injection process. That's one problem. And then also, he's on back pain medication, which would minimize the effectiveness of the drug that they use to put you out before they kill you. That drug is pentobarbital. So, stop and think about that. Severely compromised veins, so it's hard to do an injection at all, and if you do the injection, it might not work. And also, the medicine that they use to kill you might have limited effect on this guy because he's got a high tolerance from using a different medicine because of his back pain. So, I mean, he was suing and he took it to court and he's like, guys, please, I'm not saying don't kill me. The sentence was the sentence, but listen, put me in front of a firing squad, please. Now, there was a similar case in Georgia a few years back, and they said, no, you're going to get killed with the lethal injection. This is at the same time that we've covered 3, 4, 5 different stories of the lethal injection being botched. There were examples of somebody foaming at the mouth and they were alive for like 20 minutes and they died at the last minute when they had already called off the execution because it looked like it didn't work. There's all types of problems with this. Now, by the way, if you think, we do lethal injection because it's more humane. No. The reason why we were doing lethal injection is because it makes people think it's more humane. In reality, it's not. In reality, like this guy points out, dude, firing squad, the optics of it are bad. The optics of it are really evil, but it's the kindest thing you could do. If you're going to put somebody to death, that's the kindest way you can do it. Quick and painless. 1, 2, 3. The reason that there was a movement away from that is because you can see the raw barbarism of it, but if you do a lethal injection, back when they had the cocktail that worked, when you do that lethal injection, it just looks like the person's going to sleep and you don't see them in any pain. Now, since pharmaceutical companies stopped making the drug cocktail that kills people because they're not in favor of the death penalty, they had to come up with new death drug cocktails, and not all of them work, and they don't have the right amounts for some of them and all that stuff. So, I mean, we were only doing lethal injection because it made us feel better about what we were doing. In a world that made sense, in a country that made sense, we would take one look at the 8th Amendment, protection from cruel, unusual punishment, and we would say, killing somebody is, by definition, cruel and unusual. The majority of countries in the world do not have the death penalty. So that's, by definition, unusual. It's not the norm. So that's unusual. And to say killing somebody is not cruel, by any definition of the word cruel, I think it fits it. So it appears clear to me, even putting aside the recent botched executions and the lethal injection problems and his veins and his back and all that stuff, putting all that aside, I still think it's cruel and unusual. But when you add in what he says with his veins and his back, then it's beyond cruel and unusual. So really, we shouldn't even have the death penalty because we have the 8th Amendment. And there was a time in U.S. history, a brief period, where the Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty was unconstitutional and it was overturned. So there was a time, I believe in the 70s, where they didn't allow the death penalty anymore. And then that flipped. But listen, I think a plain-faced reading of the Constitution would be to conclude the death penalty is unconstitutional, just like torture is unconstitutional. Obviously, that's not the interpretation that the Supreme Court has gone with in recent years, but definitely when you add in the extra factors in this guy's instance, dude, just give him the firing squad, please. Please. I mean, really, you shouldn't have the death penalty anymore, period, but if you're going to do it, I would absolutely want the firing squad over this botched lethal injection.